yet received the vaccine. So it could have been that.
Yeah. Which one are you doing?
Pfizer.
Pfizer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been vaccinated. My wife and I got vaccinated back at the first of the year, but we both got Moderna, and she had a really bad, bad reaction to the second one. She was out basically down flat for a day, and then the next day it went away just like like it came.
Yeah.
Poof, and it was gone, and she was back to normal. And my older my older daughter had the same reaction. She got whacked for the second dose. So
Yeah.
just kind of look out for the second one.
Yeah, I've heard stories about the second one having that.
I had the Pfizer.
It's actually a good thing. It tells you that your body's kicking butt.
Exactly. What I thought was strange is I had COVID last March, and when I got the vaccine, the second one still hit me pretty hard. So I was kind of surprised by all that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Apparently, it means you don't get an immunity forever once you've gotten it. It wears off.
Yeah,
I went into a deep
it didn't
sleep
affect
for
me the
about
second
10
time.
hours.
Say again, George.
After
I'd say
sorry.
George,
I'd say the second one didn't affect me like that. I was just a little bit more fatigued than normal, but that's all I got for the second one. So then I wondered, whether I got the vaccine or whether I got saline solution.
Not everyone has a heavy reaction to it the second time.
Yeah.
Mine actually wasn't too bad. I mean, I had like a headache, and I had a minor fever, not too high, and I just felt like hell for a couple of days. So that was it. And 2 weeks later, my arm where I got the shot started hurting for like 2 hours, and then it went away. I don't know.
Oh, weird.
That was weird.
One of the reactions that I wasn't expecting to get from, I mean, I guess it's common, but I can't taste anything. So
Yeah,
that should go away for you.
Yeah,
I had no fever, but slept a tremendous amount, and then, like George's wife, I woke up and it was totally gone.
It's crazy.
At least when it's the vaccine and you have a reaction like that, that you're gonna come out of it in fairly short order. So
yeah, the taste problem should go away within about 2 weeks, I say. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but it takes a little bit, and not everyone. It doesn't go away in everyone, but it goes away in most people. It's like,
oh no, I hope it goes away.
Some people lose their sense of smell too.
Well, that's actually what I think it is. Is the smell's gone, and then its taste is so much about smell that I can only discern like salty, sweet, and I can't really pick out flavors aside from that.
If you had that minor of a case, it's most likely going to clear up on its own very, very fast. I mean, it's not, I think the people that tends to stay with are those who had really, really bad cases.
Yeah.
From what I heard. So.
That's good. Okay. So yeah, I feel a little bit behind in terms of preparing for this. Not that there was necessarily a whole lot to prepare. And I just emailed Mark. I don't know, Mark, if you've had a chance to pass it on, the top questions just for review on the topics that we kind of settled on as potential next topics. I know in the last subcommittee meeting, we had said we'd all agreed that we wanted to do the agriculture and climate change topic, but thought that we might need a little more time to do that one compared to some of the other topics. And we were kind of in consensus about doing an easier topic to start. And so I think the topic that ended up getting the most votes, once Bruce gave his vote, was the cost of action versus inaction, and having a speaker from the Climate Reality Project maybe present that one. So that's kind of a summary of where we were last time. The other topics that had received a lot of support were a day in your carbon footprint, where we would maybe get different people with different lifestyles and look at what their carbon footprint looks like. And then what does the planet look like in the future in 2050 or 2100? That one also got a lot of support. So does anybody have any updates, any new ideas, thoughts with respect to our next climate change community conversation?
Yeah, I had the cost of action and inaction as first, and what does planet look like in 2050, 2100 as number two, with carbon footprints as an alternate for number two.
Okay.
And then number three was ag, something on ag. And I don't have much past that, but what the thing that I've been trying to think through is, I think we wanted to say a maximum of an hour on this, and how is that going to be laid out? 30 minutes for the speaker, and then some time for we wanted to make sure we fit in this the climate hacks portion, so that we always have some hacks, some ideas that we can give individuals for things that they can do. So I think we need to come up with some of those as well, so that we can make sure that we've got some of those covered every session. And then some question and answer periods of time. But if people don't ask questions, then how do we fill that last, say, 15 minutes up? We need to make sure the speakers that present have something, or I mean, that's what I kind of wanted to see what you guys fill it in with, as well as what I just said.
Sure. Yeah, I agree that we want to focus on keeping it in a good time frame in terms of and then the hacks or the action items for people to take away with. Yeah, that's a good reminder. I think maybe one way we can work that in potentially is if we did like a 30-minute-ish presentation length and then set aside the 30 minutes for Q&A. I mean, we could always have pre-prepared questions around the action steps or the hacks, questions that would what do you call it? Basically the answers would be related to climate change hacks, so that could be worked into the Q&A section. I mean, I feel like that'll almost fall out of Q&A like naturally, even if we don't supply questions like that, just because I don't know, it seems like some kind of something that would be on people's mind after listening to cost of action versus inaction would be, well, what actions should we take?
I like this idea of putting some questions out there, though, so we have a few questions, kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And answers being, hacks.
It primes the pump too. It gets people thinking on the same wavelength to motivate them to pose questions that would seem appropriate for getting the max out of the whole conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, people are a lot more receptive to advice or, well, here's some things you can do if they first asked for them, so putting it somehow in that stage or asking questions, like you said, that will kind of prime people to ask similar questions and kind of direct the Q&A in that way of, being kind of action oriented.
I was just poking around quickly on the internet to see if will the climate reality person really have a handle on the dollars and cents of climate change. And I just found this thing. It's 2017 vintage on the internet. I haven't done much with it, but it looks like there's a entire section on the economics.
George, did you look at that project drawdown thing that I had that I shared last time?
Yeah.
Because that had costs of things and actually, laid out some. Those were, I admit, those were like top level.
This is Tufts University. I was looking for something that actually tried to bring it home in terms of dollars and cents to You know, how much is it going to cost you over the next 10 years from your household, you know, your resources if nothing happens?
Oh, nothing. Okay. So let's say one thing I want to try and do, if, you know, maybe I'm the only one that feels this way, but I think that based upon the information that the Project Drawdown people worked out, is that it's not so much a matter of what's it going to cost us to implement climate change. It's you know, what's the way of implementing it that's going to bring us the greatest financial return. Okay, because you know, from what I was looking at, you know, you can save money by implementing the things that are for climate change. Now, the one caveat or gotcha to that, which the Project Drawdown people did not touch on, was, and when I looked at that information, what I saw was that the people who would be getting the benefit of the projects, you know, from the you know, they were suggesting for Project Drawdown, were not the same people as those who would be paying for it.
Mm.
So industries would tend to be the benefactors of it, but then the tax, you know, the tax base are the ones that are going to be paying for it. And I thought that, gee, you know, it's not right that, you know, people should be paying for all this implementation and then not also enjoy, you know, the benefit of the return from that, the financial return from that.
Yeah. And they didn't, did they dwell on that question or even bring it up at all as far as
They
you can
didn't.
tell?
They
Okay.
didn't care. Yeah. So I mean, it was just something I looked at. But you know, I think it's a very positive way of looking at it. Just, you know, how is the, you know, that it is not something that has to cost us money. It's something that can actually save us money.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes sense in a strange sort of way.
Yeah.
It does things. It makes sense from another standpoint, in that a lot of the ways we do things are because of profiteering. You know, of corporations wanting to make profits. Why we're still in you know, so heavily invested in fossil fuels. I think we'd be much more invested at this point in time in you know, in renewables if you know, if there wasn't so much money to be made from, you know, sources of energy they've already got, you know, in the ground, and they want to pump out and sell, and they've got that mechanism all in place. They're, you know, they don't want to give that up. So that's part of it right there. But you know, the fact is by changing over, you know, we start to save a lot more money.
Mm-hmm. So just to kind of come or pull back and get some clarification on this topic that we're discussing, the cost of action and inaction, are we when we say cost, are we talking about purely financial cost, or are we talking about cost as like a general term?
I say everything.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because yeah, I mean, George just supplied the cost economics aspect, and then we started going that route. So I was just making sure that I wasn't like the only one who didn't get the memo that this is just
I
about
was kind of going on the
economics and
basis.
okay.
Yeah.
I was going on the basis it's kind of a given that, you know, we're more concerned about the cost of the environment, you know,
Okay,
and
okay.
to planet Earth's temperature than we are anything else. But I think that it's important to understand that this all can be paid for in a way that is actually an investment type payment that returns to you more than you put into it.
I guess the only thing I keep circling back around to is that, you know, for the typical person that we're trying to educate about this whole issue, it seems to me that, one, we should not rehash climate change, what it is, what it isn't, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And jump right into what does it mean to address climate change to Mr. and Mrs. Alachua County, whoever's listening to this. What does it do to your pocketbook?
Mm.
And I guess I keep coming back to that thing to get people's attention. Things need to come back to dollars and cents to the person. I don't know a lot of people even understand the big picture macroeconomics and those kinds of issues. And I don't even know if the typical person out there even cares about it. You know, I'm a little bit frustrated by that. But I'm just thinking, this is just George's, thoughts here, is that if we could find somebody to actually show some numbers and explain to people that, 10 years from now, this is how much money you will have spent if we don't address this now. And if we do these and these and these things, this is how much money you'll save. Now, I might be a little bit, childish about the way I look at this, a little less knowledgeable, but I just keep thinking that to the common person that's going to chime in on this, if we could address those issues, we might have more interest. Just a thought.
What do you guys think about the use of adding the word consequences? Or does that pull away too much from the costs and consequences, or consequences and costs of inaction? Because there's some people who will focus on what all of us here would, for the most part, focus on as consequences, but the consequences involve costs. For some people, they're focused on the dollar and cents, and the word cost keeps them attentive, focused. And I just wonder whether we should use both words.
My first question is there a financial cost to doing nothing?
Yes.
What is the financial cost of doing
For
nothing?
sure.
I mean, there is for people who live on the coast or who live in South Florida, right? But for us in Central
Here
Florida
too.
here, what is
Yeah.
the cost then? What is it?
If we don't do the appropriate thing for let's say farming, and well, the costs are greater potential for longer and more frequent storms, all the things that have negative consequences for people at the coast. The only thing that we don't have to suffer with is the rising tide. We've got all the other climactic things, drying, extreme heat, species loss. I mean, they're all there.
Yeah, I don't think, and as much as species loss is important to you and I think the average person, there's no way to quantify that in financial dollars to the average person. So I want to separate this into two parts.
When they go out the door and they hear, well, they know that there are more frequent and more severe storms, and that frightens a lot of people and has a lot of financial impact.
Do you think there's a way to quantify that by an average per person?
Someone's probably done it. The challenge is finding the data.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think to a large extent, the specifics of where we go with this depends on the speaker, right? Like if we reach out to Bob Tanzing and he's, has a talk that he's given kind of that fits right into this topic, he probably already has a sense of, how to present it and where he would take it. And then, if we wanted to, I mean, my guess is that he wouldn't want to be hyper focused on financial or economic costs, but if we wanted to then do a conversation that explores more of that, finding somebody like maybe one of the authors, on this paper that George just sent us, or somebody who's actually studied that topic more specifically, and then they would have the best idea of how to take that conversation and run with it.
I just want to have an idea of all the things that we think should go into this, so that when we're done, when we go to talk, I have as an action item here to talk to Bob about doing the presentation, but when I was reviewing that, I was saying, well, gee, I don't have all of the information I need yet to approach Bob. All I have was a topic, and title. And, I realized he could probably come up with something to fit that, but if they don't already have something to fit that. But there are other things that, we see that we've been looking at and spending quite a bit of time doing. I think the very first thing we want to do is, because these are going to be going down as videos, right? They're going to be recorded. And then they're going to go out there, and then in numerical order, people can look through those if they don't see them the first night or the second or the third, week that we do this, or month or whatever, however we decide to break these up. they will still be able to come back and look at them. So we want them to do things in a certain order. And the first thing that it should do is it should go into this concept of expense and remove that from their, from things that they would say as a barrier. Because, it's not a barrier, because if, you have, it's a matter of government putting the money up front, but then it comes back. Okay. So that's the key to that. It is something which actually brings back more money than we put into it over time. So that's important.
Yeah.
But there may be some costs that individuals are having to experience, and we need to find ways of quantifying that and saying, well, how do we deal with those in a similar fashion, or how do we work these out so that there may be people on the coast that do have to move, and how do we break that down, as well as how do we for those of us who are living here in the center of the state, how do we break apart that the cost is going to be egg and the cost is going to be on us for increased bad weather. Maybe we're going to have to put up board up our houses twice as often or whatever. So I want to have some kind of hand on that, so that we can say at the local individual level, what's the cost to us. Now we're taxpayers, so we're going to be paying whatever the government puts out. But I want to make sure we can find a way to identify those things that will return to the individual, and that's going to be part of, like, how do you want to do things, so that you do that. For example, the government may support some kind of one of the energy deals in there. One of them may be to support the use of a lot more solar cells. But if it's all done by industry, people won't benefit from that. They'll be paying the taxes to help subsidize it, but then industry will make all the money back. Individuals putting solar on their own houses, on the other hand, is a whole different story, because, or if we find for neighborhoods, or what do we do for people who are renters? I think there's some solutions. I have yet to hear anyone talking about in terms of how do you bring the financial return that's going to be out there. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be out there. How do we bring that back to individuals?
Yeah.
Well, the way we have the first topic worded, cost of action and inaction, actions will cost, but hopefully actions will turn around and make money for at least some sectors. So when I'm reading the title that we have, I guess when I see the word cost, sort of the first thing that comes in my mind is the dollar sign. I guess maybe that's one thing we can do, is to decide how far off on that rabbit chase do we want to go as far as the dollar signs, like I was arguing earlier, versus setting the table, so to speak, where cost means basically, somebody mentioned it, I think, consequences, or some kind of word like that. Consequences are positive and negative consequences of action and inaction, and use the first one to sort of set the table, and then maybe the next time we come back, we have somebody ready to talk about Mr. and Miss homeowner, what it's going to cost you if we don't do anything, versus how you might save money if we start addressing the issue now.
Geographers of economic geographers who have familiarity with storm events and government intervention in catastrophes can talk about the cost, the immediate cost of pulling us out of, recovering. Those kinds of, that data's got to be somewhere available.
Yeah, I can't believe, George, that we've come this far, years or maybe even decades, and there isn't some body of knowledge or science out there that does address the dollars in a sense.
I bet it's there. We just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, well,
you need to look closer at the Project Drawdown, because they gave lots of examples in there for it. So if you looked at it close, you saw that there was, they talked about what we have this project planting trees, we have these, and then they broke it down further. They said there's things that are good for this industry or good for that industry. There are also things that need to be done fast. and things that take longer. For example, planting trees isn't going to work the first few years. It's going to take time for the trees to grow before they start taking carbon, and cleaning the air and producing more oxygen, so to speak. But when it comes to, there are other ways we can do things that are immediate in terms, anything that cuts the use of fossil fuels, for example, would do that. So what we need to do in this first 10 years to keep within the 1.5C is to do things that will very rapidly we can put into place fast, as opposed to things that will take a long time to implement. Take several years, more to get going, because where we're headed is right now is towards the, that 2030 mark, which if we do nothing between now and 2030, we're going to go past the 1.5C. I think we're going to go past it long before that, but that's another story.
Well, for the big picture things, like you're talking about, David, you need to get the voters to understand the issue at hand, and usually that involves showing them how action or inaction is going to impact the homeowner's budget.
Right.
Take a look at the budget. Is my electricity cost going to go up? Is my water bill going to go up? Is my food bill going to go up? Or are there such scenarios here, if we attack it now, where those kinds of prices will stabilize or maybe even become cheaper for me down the road, so that you get them on board to understand how it impacts them personally, so that they become someone who at least understands on a local basis what this all means, and they're more willing to support the bigger picture things, which, as you were pointing out, are really where this needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing that Project Drawdown didn't do or doesn't do is it doesn't break it down. It just shows the big picture. It doesn't show, how does that affect the individual? Maybe we need someone, from US, like a financial person, to take a look at this and to say, oh yeah, or maybe I'm sure they've already done it, but there's someone out there that would know this and would say, yeah, we've kind of broken it down into these categories, and this, if we do this, this is going to be the, the financial impact, short term, long term, and et cetera. So I think that's probably how we need to look at this. Does anyone have any knowledge of anyone at the university that would be that? Because it's not ever been my forte, finances.
Well, we just have to ask some questions of some of the economics department.
Okay.
See if they know. There's got to be faculty members and maybe even a whole cadre of faculty members that are teaming up and working on the economics of this.
So, and maybe we need to slip that in there as the first one to start off with. Just say, here's the economics of this going on, and then, that's or this is maybe a two-part for the cost. The cost of action and inaction. Maybe this is the cost of action. But and here it is. Financial cost. And the second part is maybe the ecological cost of it.
I think that's a good idea. My reservation is just, we don't know the immediate costs of all of this stuff, and it might be a little bit more nuanced than, well, listen, we've got to address all of these things, and you'll save money. It might be more nuanced than that, and it might be a little bit less of a message that people want to hear, because like you were saying, David, there are upfront costs to doing all of this stuff, and we don't know exactly how the cost gets distributed, and so if we want to present a picture that encourages people to vote in favor of climate change action and do those things, and we're presenting them the economic picture might not be the most salient argument if it ends up being a nuanced situation there.
Yeah, I think it needs to be broken down. If it's broken down well enough, and of course deals with that distribution problem, then I think we've gotten something new out of it.
I think there's a certain amount, we're all sort of alluding to the fact that we have a responsibility to present this in the right way, because as citizens who, many of whom may be looking at this for the first time through these lenses, might get turned off and say, what's the point? It's too intractable, too complex. These people on this panel don't even know what's going to happen in the future, so we'll just wait. And you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's why I want to break it down first and get
Yeah.
it right
Yeah.
and deal with this, this distribution. I think that was the word for it. I like that that Nisha put onto it. This, you've got the cost up front, okay, and we know that that's going to be borne by the taxpayer. But then, the benefits are going to be distributed how? Are they going to go back to industry primarily, which means that industry is going to get a windfall, but the taxpayer is going to get, it's going to bear the brunt of it.
Yeah.
We want to see, and maybe the idea is that, okay, here's the way to do that, that fairly distributes the benefit back, but that's going to involve some acting by Congress.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the phrase "pay it now or pay it later" is simplistic and leaves out a lot of specifics, but it sort of suggests we do have to act quickly, but the cost will be far greater if we try to catch up, which will not be as effective anyway when we do try.
Mhm.
Yeah, things just get worse fast, and we have this like that avalanche effect, that happens. I think as the world gets warmer faster, more that excess heat then melts more ice and heats the ocean up more and destroys ocean life more. I think that a lot of this is based on the fact that we've got a lot to do, and if we go over that we need to do in the next 10 years, that's not a bad thing. We need to hop on this fast and slow it down
Yeah.
right now. I mean, and that's an important thing that that I think a lot of people miss. Oh no, we can kind of sit back and look at this and analyze it, that's not, we need to analyze it, but we need to do it fast. We
Well,
need to get started on this.
This is particularly true regarding the ocean in terms of the acidity, the nutrients, the oxygen production, our food supply. I mean, we could have every one of those things head south almost at one time.
And the temperature alone has an effect on the coral in the ocean. So it's not just acidity. It's just the temperature alone has a tremendously negative effect on the coral. So
Yeah.
So just based on just kind of my feeling about this, exploring the economic consequences or the economic costs, it does feel like one of those topics like ag, where we're going to want to maybe invite someone to talk to us at the big meeting, and kind of get a better handle on it before we do a conversation around it. I mean, it just seems like it will become a complex topic as soon as we start exploring it. At least that's my sense. And then the original direction that we were going was that more simplistic, in a way, a more general, more broad, just the consequences of action versus inaction. That was kind of, we had a speaker in mind, Bob, and it was more of a simple way, a simple matter to kind of put that together.
I wonder if it's true that if you want to have a simple, effective first time through it, that we should, as you suggest, perhaps get more background. We learn more from having at the regular meetings some presentations so that we have a better perspective as to how we want to simplify down the community forum.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, around this specific topic of the economic impacts.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, whatever we choose, literally, whenever we do, however many of these forums we have, and
Gotcha.
however we do it, it would be best if we inform ourselves to what we agree is sufficient,
Hmm.
to then, with more knowledge behind us, simplify down and invite people to this simpler, so that their experience, because of our preparation, is a better experience because of it. and then
Mhm.
that they're more inclined to come the next time and the next time.
Yeah.
And by the way, like the first one shouldn't be then the financial one, because that'll be people, oh, I'm not going to that one, I'm gonna skip that one, I'll go to the next one there. I think the first one should be, the one that's a cost and, of action and inaction, but it deals with, what they're already talking about, issues they're already talking about. I don't think they break it down into the financial costs. So I think, and then we can deal with breaking it down into a financial cost and what needs to be done to make that, the distribution of whatever benefits return from those, expenditures to come back. And I think that should be, I want to make sure that that's done in a very positive light, because the fact is that there, if you've got more money coming back from something, as you've invested into it, and you can't find a way, to distribute that fairly, then you're doing something wrong. Okay. But people need to know that, just the cost, the upfront cost of fixing climate change is actually has a financial return to it, and it's not something that we're going to lose, something we're going to benefit from over time financially. So we need to look at that standpoint, and
Mhm.
that's an important thing to do, to understand up front. It puts people in a more positive frame of mind. Well, I'm supporting doing something for climate change because I can make more money from, I get more money back from my taxes or in my business or whatever. I mean, that's
Sure.
what we need to do.
There's
Sure.
another angle from the perspective of investors, green bonds that finance in the U.S. as well as other countries big infrastructure green projects that have the huge consequences potential. And so that here's an opportunity for individuals, people of anyone who might be inclined to invest in green bonds rather than the total bond market index, let's say,
Right.
as an example.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to find a way to present this to the average person who doesn't, invest in the market at all. I don't think that many people actually are in the stock market. I think it's a relatively small amount by comparison to people that aren't in. A lot more people are not in the stock market and don't have money. Most people, I think, from week to week, from month to month, they have less than they need to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's we need to reach them too, because,
Oh,
for
yeah,
one,
for
they're going to
sure.
be votes and they're going to be taxpayers. So.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we try to find somebody to speak to the economics of climate change, maybe at our next big meeting,
Definitely.
and then for our next conversation, I mean, my fear is we're just, because every time we talk about it, we generate new ideas, and rather than ever kind of sticking to one. So I mean, I know that the kind of broad brush conversation is a little bit boring in a way or whatever, but I mean, it's one that we settled on earlier, and we have a good person to potentially present it. It'll get us used to the new format, the hour format. I mean, my biggest thing with that is if we present something that's kind of a more general, overview. I mean, the cost of action versus inaction is a little bit more targeted than just a general overview of climate change, but it will end up being largely some of that in there. But if we do, present, if that is the first conversation, maybe David, you can ask Bob what kind of material he has around that, and if there's things that he can bring to that conversation that would be interesting for somebody who's already versed in climate change. Because like George H. was saying, if we're getting people coming to this meeting, at least I think this is part of what your point was, George, if we're getting people coming to this meeting who've already versed themselves in climate change, they don't want to rehash of the same things they've heard before. So maybe we do a little compromise of both, where, there is some overview, because you can't give the same message enough times about climate change. I mean, even if just one person who hasn't heard it before, or or hasn't been impressed by it before is, that's doing something, good for the cause. But at the same time, we want to have new material or new facts, new things to impress upon the people who, have already been following the issue. And
I think that's what we had in mind. The first one we were going to do, we were going to start off with the introduction from that, like that one that the girl did for the first one. And then we were going to have, the talk, from Bob, if I remember right. I mean, that's now I think you say that. I think that's what we originally planned.
oh, I thought Bob was the introduction.
Um,
Kind of. The cost of action versus inaction to me sounds a little bit, especially if it's not just economic cost, but costs / consequences. It sounds like the kind of general topic one, just framed with that perspective.
Yeah, that does. And that's what I'm saying. I think, I think originally we were seeing that as being 30 minutes and then we're having one as a general, the more general view, the overview would be the first part of that. But at any rate, whatever, I think we could actually right now, based upon, whether we get Bob or someone else to do this, I think we could plan the first one. I think we could actually say, here's a date and we'll just come up with a speaker between now and then to do it. And it's not hard to find speakers on this right at this time. And then, and move forward with the first one while we work on this economics portion of it. Have someone come speak to us at next month's meeting, which is like what, less than 2 weeks away. Do we need to wait past the first meeting or wait till the next meeting to actually approve going forward on this? Because we could be setting a date, finding a location for it, and moving forward and getting the speakers, for it as well. And we could set it well into May somewhere where it makes sense.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I'm not sure, what's going on later in May. Let's say like the third week in May, but maybe we need to find a night, and Wednesday is still my favorite night for some of these things because there's not a lot of things that happen on Wednesday nights. To choose a Wednesday night somewhere in the third week of May to do this, and get Mark can find a location for us, and then we can work on finding the speaker in between now and then. Yeah, we know what the topic we want to have is. I think the Climate Reality Group already has a talk somewhat similar to that. So it's one of the reasons why we chose that as one of the subjects.
Yeah. So that would put us like at May 19th. That's the Wednesday, the third week in May. And David, do you want to reach out to Bob or is there, do you want to?
I will. I already had it written down for
Okay.
an action item. I just wanted to get more information before I did. And I think, now I can go back to him and that it was the original idea that, without having to go into this financial stuff, which we can break off, do as a second part. But I think it's an important part to it.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, so why don't you reach out to him, say, we're floating the date of May 19th, and see if he's available, and then get some of his feedback on our topic heading and if there's kind of a good direction he sees to take that.
Yeah. And I tell him we don't want to start from the very beginning, but we don't want to start too far, or give just the introduction points, that take less than like 5 minutes start rather than taking an hour for that, that introduction part.
Yeah.
And then move on to it. And I tend to believe that if he doesn't himself, if he's not free to do it, doesn't want to do it, that he can help us find someone to do it from one of the groups. I know he works with at least 2 of the groups directly.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then as in terms of a speaker on the economics, George, do you know this paper that you sent us, or this economic impacts of climate change on Florida?
Yeah, I know Tatiana.
Okay.
And I've heard other things she's done. She does some good stuff in that.
She's good. She's good. I also posted in the chat thing there this Florida Climate Institute, and even as recent as January 26, 2021, they have various programs. It looks like I haven't clicked on any of them, but they evidently were recorded, and it might be a place, cruising through the various presentations, it might be a place where we can come up with a name. I don't recognize many of the names as being Florida people, but it looks like they've been putting on programs, 6 or 8 of them a year. And whether some of them might fit what we're looking for, I don't know.
Okay,
Okay.
then so the other thing his question is I'm going to go to Bob and ask him to, the idea is to have a speech or, a talk for 30 to 40 minutes, let's say. And then the rest of the time we'll work on some questions maybe at the next meeting. And that would have to be, if we're going to say we're going to work for this and get a location for it, then I think we need to commit to saying, okay, we're going to come up with certain questions. And so we should send out something before the next meeting saying this is homework. Everyone's got to come with, 1 or 2 questions, 3 questions that they think are appropriate, that would lead to that are leading questions to to various things that we think can work for climate cap stuff.
Mm. And those would be questions like for the Q&A portion, or just questions that we would maybe give to Bob to direct his
Well, for the
presentation.
Q&A portion, I think what we're going to do, I think, what it sounds like the idea we want is we want to more or less slip the climate hacks into the Q&A sessions in a surreptitious manner, and that would be that's how we're going to do it, rather than say, okay, now we've got this this section dedicated to that. I just think that the section will automatically kind of have that built into it if we're developing questions in that fashion for it. But it also leaves freedom to ask other questions.
So just so I'm clear on where we're going here, we want Bob to come in at our next meeting to address the issue of the consequences of action and inaction, and we're basically discussing with him what information is out there and who would be a good speaker for that for the first conversation. Is that what I understand?
Okay. Yeah. Why not? I mean, either him or someone else, and
Right.
hopefully, what I would hope to have is before that time, actually have whoever we would be willing to speak, already contacted and join the meeting to understand where our thinking is on the subject.
But you have to reach out to Bob to ask him that question.
Yeah, I'm going to reach out to Bob first, and
Okay.
because I have a relationship with him and I know him and talk to him often on things.
Yeah,
Talked to him
gotcha.
yesterday, as a matter of fact.
So, so I didn't, the part about Bob coming to the next meeting, I didn't assume that was happening. Yeah, I mean, if he's available to come to the next meeting, and we want to get maybe somebody to talk about economics, is that putting too much on the plate?
No.
No, okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're, we give, because like last meeting, the discussion with Dr. Engel, I think took a good portion of the meeting, and I enjoyed having all of that time to talk with him. And I wouldn't want, if we get a really good person to talk to us about economics, I wouldn't want to feel like we have to kind of compress that conversation to make room for other things on the agenda. So I just want to make sure that time-wise it makes sense. It feels a little bit like a lot to me to put in one meeting.
What would you like to reduce then? What if you had your druthers, how would you shape it?
Folks, I'm going to have to bail out of here. I got a 6 o'clock also to log on to. George,
Yeah,
sorry
you
to
mentioned-
interrupt,
Bye.
but I'll let you guys go ahead and continue on this.
Okay,
I think I understand kind of where we're going, and I would be fine with that.
okay, makes sense.
George, are you going to contact Tatiana then as an action item?
I guess if I know what, I kind of saw her coming in as the second conversation and drilling down more specifically on the dollars and census.
Right.
And I could ask her if she feels comfortable doing that or if she has another name. So I can do that.
So
Okay, good.
maybe we can have her talk not next meeting, but this meeting after?
I'd like you to talk to us next meeting, because that
Next
puts us-
meeting?
then
Okay,
we can be prepared in the next subcommittee to do the following meeting. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Or the
Okay.
second meeting. So
okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, that would only be a couple weeks from now, so I'll see. I'll email her and just kind of tell her what we're looking for and see if she would be available at the next meeting.
Thank you, George.
Okay, well, talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, George. Bye. Okay. Are we having fun yet? No. By the way, I really enjoyed, Scott's talk last time, but the thing that I did a little, work afterwards and checking his numbers, and he was saying, that we're going to have twice the population to feed, so therefore we need to have twice as much food. And I don't think that's right. I did the numbers, and the numbers were, we're maybe going to go up 20% in population. And, we're already wasting more than 20% in food, by the way. So, if we were just to better, utilize the food we've got, we wouldn't even have to go create any more food. But, and the other thing is that, as much as I do believe that properly run farms do not have to be, polluters. They can properly, sequester their water before it leaves their property, or they can, properly be using, the methods for in-ground, moisture sensors, and making sure that, they only put the water that they, the irrigation they put out only goes to the root level of the plants. And that's going to make sure that the fertilizer only goes to that level as well. So, if they're following that, those models are fine. But, there's just a ton of them out there that don't do it because the state doesn't require it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out at the last VMAT meeting, there's a whole bunch of places that, quote, could be farms. They were farms in the past. If you look at them on a satellite image, they're farms. They're being farmed, but they're not in the BMAT program, and they're not being required to have their own sensing of their of anything, and not reporting the amount of nutrients that they're using, fertilizer or anything, which are all things that people who are part of the BMAT program are doing. So, and it's been this way for years.
Yeah.
We were complaining about this several years ago, and then I asked recently in the BMAT meeting, I said, well, how far along have you gotten? And they pretty much said, well, we haven't gotten anywhere with it because, well, we lost the last year due to the COVID, and, and then the year before, and now we've got less people working for us. So, that was Governor Scott's whole concept behind this, is just cut funding, and cut down the people that are doing various jobs where you don't want, anyone looking at things, and, cut down the policing aspect for the, DEP, and you solve the problem, which from his aspect, I guess was the solution to the problem. But, so, there's still an agricultural pollution problem that needs to be dealt with. And that's something we just can't let go of just because we've got speakers who are, very pro ag and, don't want to look at that aspect because it doesn't, I guess, put them in the most favorable light.
Right.
But I certainly understand how, and why, they end up in that, because they deal with agriculture all the time. And a lot of the people they're dealing with are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But those who aren't, those are the ones we got to stop, doing the wrong thing. So anyway,
So-
in /soapbox.
So yeah, it's 6 o'clock. I'd prefer wrapping up soon. I'm kind of spent, and I think we're at a near stopping point. So Bob, do you want to try to get Bob to come to the next meeting? And
I will.
okay.
And I would also suggest that we send out, a message to, all EPAC members, as everyone is to come, and no notes from the mother. That doesn't help, if you haven't been able to do the homework assignment. Your dog cannot eat this assignment. If it is, let's bring your dog to the meeting, and show it. But bottom line is we need to get some, some suggestions for, the hacks, the questions, that are going to be, leading questions to get the hacks out. So however you can word that to communicate to everyone.
Okay. All right, I'll send an email out, or I'll send something to Mark, or you can if you'd like. David.
Your chair, I'll leave it to the chair.
Okay. You're like, this is the part I like to defer to the chair now. Yeah, so I'll write an email to
I should have done this a long time ago. if you can't come up with something and I don't see something in the mail in a couple of weeks, or in the next week, I'll see what I can put together.
Okay.
But don't count on it. Okay, because I'm really to the max right now on things. I've been taking some classes, and right now I'm in a habitat evaluation class. It's going to have me going out in the fields and laying down quadrants and doing transects and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm not,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, so it's, it's got a lot to it. I really
Yeah.
It's busting my ass, but that's
Wow.
that's good because I'm learning from it. That's why
Sounds kind of fun though.
it is. It's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, so hopefully we'll get 2 speakers for next meeting. And then we'll go from there and see what, Bob's availability is for May 19. I guess if he can come to the next meeting, and then if we do a subcommittee meeting 2 weeks after that, that'll put us a week ahead of when we plan to have that conversation.
What is the week? I'm going to look at the schedule. Okay, so the next meeting is on the 4th,
Mhm.
and then we're going to want a meeting.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so that'll actually be around that time.
Yeah. So so 2 weeks after for the next meeting would be when we plan to have the conversation. So, I mean, if we feel, I don't know if we want to have that next subcommittee meeting of preparation, or if you feel like we can coordinate everything by the 19th. I don't have as good of a sense for how much coordination is involved in getting this.
That's quite a bit.
We do once.
Y'all can do all that, but behind the scenes at all the public noticing stuff and all from the county standpoint, we need at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, I mean, I get grief that I don't give 2 weeks notice just for scheduling meetings. So, for a public presentation, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Can I make a recommendation then that we actually make the subcommittee meet? We go into a once a week until we get through these. They don't have to last an hour. I mean, we're running over right now, but when we get right next to it, it'll allow us to make sure we haven't got anything that we're dropping the ball on, and that Mark's, everything's going good and smooth from Mark, and that we don't need to make any changes. And so we've had meetings in the past where we just came in, talked for 2 minutes and left, but sometimes we go in and we've got a lot more to talk about than we thought we would at the last minute.
Sure.
I don't remember 2-minute meetings.
Well, I was.
I mean, the other option is we push the date of the conversation forward a little bit.
You missed
That may be the best move, to push it not forward, but give us more
Move
time.
back another week.
More time. I think you're
So the
better off.
19th, make it like the 20, whatever, 26 or what it would be, 26, yeah.
Yeah. And that would give us at least one more subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
And I mean, we can do multiple ones, especially if they're going to be short, but
I think you get a pretty good idea after the next meeting, when you get line up who you're going to present. I think
Yeah.
from that standpoint, tying that down is critical. And then from there, it can kind of like gauge on when to schedule, whether it's, mid to late May, anytime in that time frame, and then from there, the subcommittee, like David said, if you wanted to have more subcommittee meetings, we could do that too.
okay.
But why don't we, I think we should move it to the 26th for the actual meeting itself, for the presentation meeting. And then, at least, what do you call it? For the 12th and the 19th, we can set meetings.
Okay. And Mark does need like 2 weeks out to set a meeting. So if we feel like we need to do a meeting on the 12th, maybe we can set it now, or David, you can kind of let us know what Bob says, and if it feels like we want.
I think we should go ahead and just set them up. you know.
Okay, okay.
We're gonna, you know, we may or may not, we're gonna have to have.
We can
we're
always,
gonna
we
have
can
to
always
have-
cancel them if we don't
Yeah,
need
we
them.
can.
Right,
It's
right.
easier to cancel them than it is to, you know, to get marked, you know, set them up in 2 days and take flack from everyone for doing so.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So
So you
Mark,
do May 12th for subcommittee at what time?
I mean, this time works for me, the 5 o'clock.
5 or
Does-
6, either one's fine. We set it to this so that Scott would come, and Scott didn't make it to this one, so.
Oh, I think also it was for George H.
Is it
Because
okay?
George needed,
he had the
right.
meeting at
For
6.
5.
Right.
Let's keep them at 5 then for them, and then we'll do.
Why don't we
one on
just set
the
up
12th.
2? Why don't we set up the 12th and the 19th, just so we
Yeah.
have them in the book?
And
Okay.
the 26th is the actual meeting we're gonna have for this, for the first part of this.
Yeah,
So we're going to have subcommittee meetings the 12th and 19th.
yeah, and then the conversation is potentially on the 26th.
That'll work.
Okay,
And so Mark, you'll need to also give us a location for the 26th.
Oh,
As
it's
well.
gonna be Zoom. That's all. We're not tying down alternative locations. They're not gonna support that. We're gonna do webinar like last time. We have more access to webinar options, so.
That's right, that's right. We don't have to
So,
we don't have to get a physical location. I'm sorry. I'm
But,
still thinking, okay,
I had lined up Stacy to give presentation on wastewater spills for the next meeting, but we can push that out till after the conversation, the forum, if you prefer.
she may be, it may be fine. We may be fine. Have her come, and, you know, if, you know, we have the other speakers we have will both be non EPAC member, non-county speakers, so they will go first by nature anyway, and then if there's time left over, then Tracy or Stacy.
Well, I don't, yeah, I do respect. I'd rather not have Stacy sit and go through all this and Greg Owens. And, you know, let's just have it as a special, as, you know, once the forum, I suggest have a forum, because I just don't think it'd be right to have them sit and wait through all this and then get, you know, at 7 o'clock at night or whatever.
They can come they can come at the start of the second hour if they want. And by the way, I think that very likely, you know, we're not gonna have to deal with very much from Bob. Bob will come in and say he can do it, or we're gonna have someone else, you know, is gonna say a few more words that we may not already know, but, you know, we'll just get to know them a little better, and that'll
We
be
didn't
that.
know that though, David.
I don't know. I don't know.
Conversation may get more involved as it happens.
it tends to happen.
It tends to
It does,
happen.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, you know, I don't know, the reason why I'm doing it because I've had good luck before. It came, you know, if I set these time frames for things to talk, you know, it's okay, fine, that's that. Now, maybe I need to have a conversation with Stacy to see how long she's going to need to make her, you know, her presentation to us.
Well, Nisha, what do you think?
You're the boss.
I mean, I think 3 is a little pushing it a little bit. 3, you know,
That's it then. That's it. That's all we need to know. We'll do 2, and then that's it. Hey,
but
that's why you're the
at the
boss.
same time though, we don't know for sure if either Bob or this other person will be ready to speak to us at the next meeting.
I
So
actually don't see them as needing to speak to us, if you want to know the truth.
Bob, you mean?
Yeah, I don't, or someone else. If we, you know, the person he's going to recommend is going to be someone who's qualified to do the talk. For
Yeah.
us, right. And, you know, we can have an independent talk with that person at one of the subcommittee meetings for that matter, if we, you know, have to. Which is why I just don't think that's, you know, that's a big deal, because that's kind of a known, you know, quantity. It's already known. People are already giving talks like
Yeah,
that.
if we
regularly.
want to put this, if we want to have Bob or whoever else is planned to present, if we want to have them come to our subcommittee meeting instead, to just hash out the details and where they can ask us more specific questions and stuff, we can do that. And then
Okay.
have, hopefully somebody talk to us about economics and climate change, and then we can have Stacy present.
Good.
Those 2 people present at the big meeting. Since this is anyway, you know, the community conversation is being dealt with by the subcommittee anyway.
There you go. Good idea.
Does that work for
Okay.
everybody?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay.
So
No,
we still want Stacy to come in. Who's Greg Owen, by the way? Maybe I forget the name. I probably know him.
He's a senior planner that works for Stacy.
For the state.
Yeah, and they
Why-
would feel
why-
more comfortable, at least from a Q&A standpoint, to have a GRU representative there. Not to give a presentation, but just if the committee has any questions, then that would probably more likely be Jennifer McElroy, who does, we regularly work with her on projects, so. But they've not prepared, Stacy's not, she's working on the presentation, but she's not completed it yet. So I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention if you wanted to wait till after the forum, but if you want to go ahead and have her speak, like say David recommended, I come in at 7 o'clock or something, then that may be an alternative. At least she can plan accordingly in terms of the PowerPoint presentation and preparing documentation. So.
Yeah, that'll work. And why would Greg be coming from the state? Just to,
Greg does a lot of the data collection and would be
Uh-huh.
part of the presentation. So.
oh, he does,
He-
okay.
Yeah.
He's,
yeah.
Mark said he works for Stacy, not for the state.
He works for Stacy. Yeah.
Oh, works for Stacy. I thought you said-
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
getting corrected.
No, he's been with DPD for
Oh, EPD,
a long time. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not, but my understanding was that as far as the waste, testing, that was done by GRU, so. Right?
The collection.
The testing.
Yes,
the
yeah.
skill, the testing is
Hey,
not
we
just
do,
done-
we do some sampling, but yes, GRU does the sampling as well.
I mean, that was what my whole, bringing up the issue was about.
Right.
Yeah,
And they can provide information on how that process, they're trying to, make some revisions. And so the timing of it actually works out well because they've been working through it procedurally on some changes in that regard. So.
okay. Because I'll be honest, I'm not 100% convinced of what Scott said, that, you can pour, just about anything into the aquifer and it's fine, I just don't agree with that, statement. I think we want to not put in pollutants into the aquifer, especially, we don't want to put pathogens into the aquifer. Maybe
Yeah,
a tough
that is
environment.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, there are conduits, down there that, would carry the pathogens unmodified, essentially. And, pathogens can exist in water just fine. So not like, it's going to get rid of them. So that's that. At any rate, so it's getting late. I guess we should go.
All right, everyone. Well, yeah. It was good meeting with everybody, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Take
On
care.
the 12th.
Bye.
And thank you, Mark.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Brooke.
Thank you.